morning, Central Texas. Welcome to KISS Community Connections, 103.1 KISS FM. I'm Phyllis Jones, your host. And you know, this is, as I'll say, Black History Month. But usually when we talk about Black history, we go way back, to slavery times. But we have history today and now, so we need to discuss it. So this morning, we're going to talk about some killeen firsts as far as African Americans are concerned. A lot of people I've talked to said that, they've never read anything in print about killeen first. But I want to tell you that there was something printed about the first African Americans in killeen and what they've done, and I'll say what we've done, and what some of our, groundwork began. Also, there's a book about the city of Killeen written by Miss Alice Dowse, who we're going to talk about also. As I'm talking, you're going to hear me changing papers because what I'm doing is reading from a newspaper printed May 2007. And the reason this paper is from the African Poster, and if you remember Babatunde, when he was here and had Under One Roof, he had a paper called the African Poster. And I'm going back to this one for a reason. In 2007, Killeen turned 125 years old, and they were having a big celebration. Well, you know me, I'm the question one. I am the one with the 50,000 questions. So when I heard that Killeen was doing a 125-year celebration, I was like, really cool. That was really nice. But I went to one of the committee meetings, and I saw nobody there of color. Nobody. So my question was, how are you going to do a 150-year celebration and everybody there is Anglo? There's no Hispanics, nobody. So I asked that question, and I got that look like you would have asked that. And so when I left the meeting, my first stop was to Under One Roof. I'm like, hey, Babatunde, Killeen is having a 125-year celebration, and we're not in it. We're not a part of it yet. What I wanted him to ask him, can he do a newspaper, a special edition newspaper, to talk about the first, which is something we need to know. So Babatunde worked with Alice Dowse because she passed away a couple of years ago, but she was our historian as far as African Americans. So together, they worked together and they got this newspaper together. But it wasn't just them. So I'm going to dispel the myth that we can't work together. This became a community project because everybody had a piece to put in there to say, we did this, we did this, we did that. So I'll say the whole community, we worked together with Babatunde because he was the hub because he had the newspaper. People from everywhere in Killeen was dropping little papers to him saying, this was his, this is this person, this is that person, this is this. So it became a community effort to get this done. And not only did Babatunde have the paper, he had T-shirts, so we all got T-shirts. And it was really cool because, like I said, we came together as a community, not as this group, that group, this group. We were one group. We were concerned. We knew we had to get the word out there. We could not let this Killeen have their 128th year of celebration without all of us being a part of it. And we were. We were all a part of it. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is some of the parts of the history that's in here. You're going to hear me ruffling papers because I laminated this newspaper so I could keep it. So as you hear me turn papers or a little noise, that's what you will be hearing the ruffling part is. So a little history about Killeen. As we should know, before it was the city of Killeen. When Killeen didn't even exist, we were Bell County. But before Bell County, it was Milam County. And before Milam County, it was, it was actually a military base. We weren't a city before Milam County. It was a military, it wasn't military base, but it was what it is. But it was Camp Hood. It was not Fort Hood, but it was that. So years ago, it didn't even exist. It didn't exist. So we're going to go from Killeen. We're going to talk about some of the first African American first. I did mention Alice Dowse, so I'll talk about Alice Dowse first. Alice Dowse was the first African American female to integrate KISD schools. KISD did have a school, but as we know, it's Marlboro Elementary School. And everybody worked there. If you were African American at school, you worked there. That was it, done, case closed. That's it. And in 1970, 69 actually, KISD decided to close Marlboro Elementary School and just disperse the kids. Well, at that time, Freeman White, Odessa White, his wife, and a couple other people formed the NAACP because they felt that their school should stay open. So it took them a year to get it done, but for that year, some of the teachers found somewhere else to work, other schools. Well, Alice Dowse was the first one to integrate Haynes Elementary School. She went there and taught. Later we know, Alice Dowse became the first African-American female principal of KISD. And after she retired from there, she didn't stop doing what she was doing. Alice Dowse became a mentor of any and everybody. Anybody. I mean, you know, she mentored you, she fussed at you when you did something wrong. But also, she became a history keeper of African Americans in Killeen. She had all of our history that she could find. Everybody knew, like they did to Babatunde, to give it to her. So she did print a book before she passed away, and it's about Killeen. So it's there, and for people who might say, you know, we don't have it written, it's written. And for those of us who still have this newspaper, we got a whole bunch of history in this newspaper. So let's start talking about it. We already talked about Alice Dowse. And like I told you, the ruffling is because I laminated this paper because I was scared that if I didn't, as you know, it would have looked like a nightmare. A real nightmare. I'm try not to make too much noise with it at all. If you look at, if you were to see this paper, you would see two people here. You would see one, like I just talked about, Alice Dowse, as the first African-American female principal. But as you know, we had a African-American male principal also. And it's, in this paper, it's a picture of them. And I swear this paper looked like, I don't know what, it's old. The picture is, because we no longer look like this. We don't dress like this. And it was cool to actually see the paper, to know that this history is here and very much alive. As we know, as far as stores and businesses is, Levi Belfour, which is still in business, was the first African-American business in Killeen. And he's still there. He sells suits. But it's Belfour Menswear. He's still right there. He hasn't gone anywhere. But he was the first African-American business in the city of Killeen. And like I said, he is. Excuse me, but let me go back. Doc Jackson was the first principal of KISD. And if you ever go to the center, on Doc Jackson Center in Killeen, you'll see a picture of him and a big picture of Alice Dowse right beside him. You'll see both of them right there. Eric Gaither, we're going to talk about Eric Gaither. Right now, he does track. He runs track and field. He's very good at it, knows what he's doing. He also trains kids to also be for track and field. And he's in here for just that. He got a scholarship. He got many things going for him as far as being track and field. And also, so we're staying in education. The first African Americans graduated from KISD, Killeen High School, in 1958. The building we know now as Killeen High School wasn't Killeen High School. It wasn't the first Killeen High School. That's actually the second building of Killeen ISD. The first building is a middle school. Well, it's been remodeled and everything, but the first Killeen High School is actually now belonged to Texas A&M. It's the building they bought years ago when Killeen closed that school down. KISD did, but that was also the first Killeen High School. So the build, like I said, the building now, no, that wasn't it. It was the middle school, and yes, the building is still here. Now, as far as leaders in the city of Killeen, as your leaders would go, everybody, well, I'm not going to say everybody, but we had Rosa Herford, and we all call her Mother Rosa because she'll get you if you mess up. But as far as leaders of Killeen, Rosa Herford was the first female and African-American female to be on the Killeen City Council. And at that time, she was also a counselor for KISD. So we know that she was there. Rosa was very powerful. She helped make a lot of changes in Killeen while she was on the council. She got the respect of all the other people men on the city council because she was the only female there. And if you know Rosa, she's gonna, nothing's gonna get by her. She's not gonna let anything slide by her. And till today, most of us know if anybody's gonna run for office, who do you call? You call Rosa Herford, because she gives you the blueprint of how to run for office, what you should or shouldn't do, who you should talk to, who you shouldn't talk to. She still does that today. And even though you might say her methods, she's older, her methods are still fresh, they're still new. And most of us, we try to educate other people to do the way she did it. But like I said, Rosa Herford was a counselor for KISD, and then she, at the same time, she was on the Killeen City Council. A couple of years ago, I gave her a surprise award because it had been 30 years since she had been on the city council, which was a long time, and it was a milestone, and she was also surprised that we had it. And if you want to talk about today, Tim Hancock was the first African American mayor of the city of Killeen, and Connie Green was our first African American city manager of Killeen. Both are still active in the community. Both are still doing things. You can still ask them questions and see what's going on, and they will tell you you're not going the right way, you're going another way, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. So they're still there, and they're not going anywhere. And we can always, I like the fact that we can still reach out to them, and they don't just say, you know what, don't call me or anything like that. Also, we have Fannie Flood. Fannie Flood now has a real estate, but I don't know if you noticed, but Fannie Flood was also on the KISD school board for a time period there. And she was very strong about education, and she still is today. She pushes education today, but she sat on our school board for a number of years and represented us very well as far as education was concerned. And then, like I said, she went on to become in a real estate agent, and she still is today, same thing. And once again, we can still call her up and ask her questions, and you know what? She'll give us answers. She doesn't mind. She doesn't mind that. She does what our elders are supposed to do. They reach down and touch, and always leave the door open for you to call them and talk to them and see what's going on, and they'll tell you. When you ask, you better be ready for the answer, because they're going to give it to you, regardless to what. So let's move on. Okay, once again, what you hear me now doing is turning papers, because this is a newspaper, and it's really big. And like I said, I laminated it so that we could keep it. Okay, in Killeen, our first eye doctor was Dr. Estes. He was the first eye doctor in Killeen, and he became an eye doctor for here in 1993. He was our eye doctor. Then we have Dr. Barbara Chen. As we know, she was a dentist. And then we have Dr. Lavelle Ford, who's retired. I don't know if we gave him permission to retire, but he was the dentist that did the surgery that we needed to fix your teeth. He did the surgery, and in fact, I'll say he was so good until Fort Hood wouldn't let him go. They wanted him to retire. They tried to keep him on, and they even convinced him to stay on to replace himself, so that when he left, Fort Hood had a replacement in there. Then we have Horace Grace. I don't know if many of you know Horace Grace, but first of all, Horace Grace sat on our water board, and to protect our water and to educate us about our water, because we didn't understand the fact of selling water and borrowing water and what kind of water to drink and all those things. We didn't know that. But Horace Grace taught us, and he's still teaching us how to do those things. Also, Horace Grace, he served as the vice chairman in Texas to protect our water. He did it for several years, and till today, I asked him about our water, because I don't know if you know it or not, Killeen does not own their own water. Neither do a lot of cities don't own their own water. So it can be sold, and we know nothing about it, which is kind of weird. But I had him explain that to me, because once again, I didn't understand it. So I needed somebody to explain it, and I went to Horace Grace and got the explanation that I needed to get about our water. Now, the NAACP. The first president for the NAACP, like I said, was Mr. Willie Gibson. When the NAACP started, it started out as a branch out of Dallas because they didn't have enough members to be on their own. So finally, when they did get enough members, Mr. Gibson became the first president that they had. The first restaurant we had was Maurice's Open Pit Barbecue. I did not know that, but Maurice's Barbecue was the first restaurant that we had in our city. And you figure the building is still there today. I think the name has changed since he passed away, him and his son, but the building is still there, which is really nice because we can go by and see it and actually see what's going on with it. But he was our first, and not only did Mr. Gibson become our first president of NAACP, he also sat on Killeen City Council and made some major changes in how we think and what we do and the business as ran. So he served very well as a president of the NAACP and on our Killeen City Council. All right, our fraternities. And I know everybody gonna say something about it, but it's okay. So we're gonna talk about our fraternities. We have, okay, as you know, we do have all the fraternities and sororities here, but they didn't become active in Killeen when they all began. It was in the late years when they did. So we're going to talk about our fraternities, our sororities, and our Masonic families. We're going to talk about all of them in a few seconds. In 1931, wow, when it was Camp Hood, when it was our first Masonic family came in and registered themselves as a Masonic family here in the city of Killeen. The Delta Sigma Theta, they got here, when they came here in 1973 is when the Deltas formed in the city of Killeen. Okay, some of their presidents were Irma Bede, was the first president it has on here. And then it goes on down the line to list who all the presidents were. And also, as we know, Alice Dowse was also a Delta. And then we have Omega Psi Phi, and they came to Killeen and became, I guess, an actual chapter at about the same time. And they're still here today, and they're still active in the community. And very interesting. Okay, you know we have the Masonics and OES, it's Order of the Eastern Star. And like I said, we have all of our Greek organizations here, and they formed and became active in the community in the 70s and the 80s in the city of Killeen. Okay, you're gonna hear me again, turn pages. Sorry about that. Okay, at Under One Roof, Baba Tunde started a number of things. In Under One Roof, we started the celebration. We didn't start it, but he started celebrating Kwanzaa during the time of Kwanzaa. So we educated people about what Kwanzaa was, what it was about, and we practiced it. Also at Under One Roof, one of the other first was the Poetry Slam, because a lot of people were doing poetry here and there. You know, so he got everybody together and they did a Poetry Slam. So on Fridays, everybody knew to be at Under One Roof for the Poetry Slam, and that's something that he began there. And he began a whole bunch of things here, come think about it. Also at Under One Roof, Baba Tunde had Natural Hair Day, because we were going, more and more women were going natural, you know, doing their own natural hair. But the problem became, what the heck do you use? You know, because if you've been getting your hair relaxed, certain chemicals you use. But if your hair was going natural, you didn't use chemicals. You know, so we had Natural Hair Day at Under One Roof, which was something else that Babatunde had started. We always had book clubs, but Babatunde became a what you call it, the hub for books, the hubs for you know, groups to study books and talk about books, and we got together and had a lot of things going there. And everybody knows Babatunde's phrase was, "To whom you give your money is to whom you give your power." That was something that we knew. It was embedded into our head, and Babatunde did push that. And like I said, most people knew the same before they knew that he said it. It was really wow, but people knew it first. I mean, you know, and you knew where it came from. And the thing today is, we still say it. I don't know if Babatunde knows it or not, but we still actually say exactly what he said then, and we still say it now. And it's true. It actually is true, because we give our money to whoever we do, and that's the person that has the power over us and to make decisions for us. So, you know, we need to protect that. And, you know, and it was when it was time for voting, which is coming around now, Babatunde talked to us about it, and we had many discussions there about not to elect somebody just because of their color. You know, I mean, if they were African American, they were a good candidate, vote for them. But if they were African American and they weren't a bad candidate, don't vote for them. So we talked about, you know, looking at everybody and then judging and pushing and talking about our politicians. And so he was, you know, he talked about voting just as strongly as we're talking about it now, except for I think then more of us voted than now. Don't know what happened with that, but we've shifted and we need to shift back. Also at Under One Roof, Babatunde wanted to do Black Santa Claus. And I created him his outfit. He had naturally wore black. He wore red, black, and green, and kids came to see him around the time of Kwanzaa, actually, and saw him and took pictures just like all the other kids do. So that was something that was started and done. Yes, that's me again turning pages. Because, like I said, I laminated it because I didn't want to lose nothing of it. And to me, the only way to preserve something at that time, at any time, was to go back and actually laminate the whole paper. As far as sports, we have a whole bunch of firsts. I could take up the rest of the morning talking about firsts, and I won't do that because we'll be here all morning talking about African American firsts as far as our sports are concerned and our entertainment. We could spend a lot of time on that too, but we know we know those things do happen, and so we don't have to dive into that as far as that's concerned. So let's turn. And could I memorize all this? Nope. There's no way. Okay, military. And we know who we are. We know we're the home of Fort Hood. But we had a whole bunch of things happen as far as the military first. I don't know if you know it, but it's a man here. He lives in Killeen. His name is Freeman White. He came to Fort Hood in 1957. And guess what happened in Killeen? He got arrested for driving a Cadillac. He drove from Fort Meade, Maryland to here safely. Cool. But he got here, he got arrested because he was not allowed to have that car in the city of Killeen. So he had to call his first sergeant to come and drive his car back so that he could have it. And he had to buy another car to drive here, to drive in Killeen and come to, you know, back and forth, a car that was more quote unquote acceptable. So he had to do that in order to do. And you know, you wouldn't think that as you think about it, you go, really, that was like the dumbest thing ever. But you know, that was in 1957, and that's what they thought. So yes, he had to get rid of his car and get one that that Fort Hood said, well, that the city of Killeen said was okay to have. And like I said, that was really kind of wild.